Hello, my friends. Welcome, welcome. One thing I want to share today is the power of not only circulating our attention, but particularly circulating our attention inside ourselves. Because right now, my experience in just looking around in the world is that we have what I would call a bounce-off culture, that giving just a quick amount of attention but to the surface and then bouncing off, so that and I think people are also doing that with themselves, like instead of really giving rich attention to what's going on inside, people do a little bounce off, like I'm okay, or oh, a little tight, and then back into action without any weaving of attention with what's going on in your insides. And some people talk about, some philosophers and scientists talk about the power of when you give attention to yourself, the first thing that happens is you get more circulation. So you're getting more circulation of breath, of blood, of all of your sensations. And most of us, I believe, give ourselves attention from the outside, like, how am I coming across? How do I look? Oh, somebody's looking at me funny. Oh, I'm scared. But there's not a participation with what's actually going on in your insides. And so as we're doing the loop of awareness, which is simply shifting your attention, just that. So as we're meeting today, I'd love for you to shift your attention out, and I'd like you to actually look for somebody who is not familiar to you, somebody's face, somebody who you go, oh, I don't know this person, and just give them your curious attention for a moment. And then I'd like you to take that same curiosity and let it travel inside, as if you had little roadways inside that you could travel along, like, oh, I haven't been down this road before, let me just go and see what's here. And then as I do that, even as I'm talking to you, I can give attention to myself. So this being able to notice out here and then to notice in here, and to let that happen more and more with flow, is one of the skills that you can continue building lifelong. So that now I can give attention to me, and I can give attention to all of you, and I can notice one of you in the midst of that, and I can notice my right big toe in the midst of all of that. And what I'm doing is circulating and giving the energy of attention to as much of myself as is asking for attention, but also the parts of me that might have gone, nobody ever notices me. Like, like, no matter how hard I try, nobody ever notices me. So if you have a part of your body, like the back of your knees, do you ever notice the back of your knees? Your back of your knees are working hard all the time to keep you. I've become very aware of that in the last few years because of my long COVID. The back of your knees is really essential to walking, for one thing. So there are places in you that both are asking for attention and also places that have probably gone, doesn't matter, no matter what I do, doesn't matter. So letting your attention just circulate, and then noticing somebody else out here whom you didn't notice before, and getting curious about something that you appreciate. Curiosity and appreciation are so close together. So noticing that, and then noticing you, and then I'd like you to let yourself just close your eyes for a moment and notice if you can feel the circulation of attention in you. So for example, is it more under your skin? So that you can feel what's coming at you, but you can go a little bit more into your skin. Can you feel your blood flow? Can you notice the flow of an impulse that travels up your body? Do you notice how like have more weight on my left sits bones right now? And if I give my attention to that, I can notice, oh, that's connected to my right heel. And my right heel is pushing a little bit to counteract what I'm doing. And so I'm just noticing the different parts of me from the inside. So make a shift, just to give you a contrast, make a shift and notice yourself from the outside. So notice yourself as if you were looking at yourself, and then notice what you notice, because we almost always notice what's wrong. Like, noticing that my hair is droopier today, or noticing that your pants are tight, or noticing. So it's almost always what's wrong. But if you were to when you let yourself look at yourself from the outside, when I do that, my insides get more vacant. There's just more, it's not even space, it's just sort of, it's like a parking place. But now shift your attention to noticing where energy is flowing in you. And so I see some of you, as you're doing that, you're starting to move. And I can see others starting to breathe. And so your attention is a source of circulation. And it's probably the easiest, the most vital that you can then add to. And what I see you adding to that is, oh, this place wants to move. Because almost always we have ourselves in some form of fear. You're either frozen, or you're moving around faint, or you're fleeing everywhere, or you're going, oh, God damn it, what's going on? And you're in fight. So when you turn your attention to what's flowing, what's moving, and how can I participate in that more? And one of the ways that you can do that, or two of the ways you can do that, are with your breath and with your movement. So when you put breath, movement, and attention together, it's a very, very powerful, it's like being on a perpetual swing, or, being on a merry-go-round, or being out in the forest where you're feeling the circulation of the trees and the birds and the butterflies around you. So letting your body be as alive as you are. When you give attention, that's one of the quickest ways also to move through the fear trance. Because after 10 years, we're in a fear trance. And everybody around the world is having to deal with that, every day and practically every interaction. So for me, the circulation of my attention, and particularly giving attention to any place in me that's going, hello. So what are your internal signals that let you know that you want your own attention? Because we often think that other people's attention is more valuable than ours. And when you give yourself loving attention, what opens up is flow. And your health in all levels is most dependent on flow. And so the more that we're able to flow, even when you're stuck, you can give yourself a flow of attention. And then your body, your breath, your movement, and your shifting of your attention gives you flow. And I like to do this. One of the reasons I do this for me, Monday morning, is that it sets up a blueprint for the day. So I really encourage you to use what we're exploring as a part of your entering into your day, so that you can enter your day with flow, so that no matter what is happening, if you circulate your attention, you can come into flow with what's wanting to happen next. And it also gives you more choice. I notice that the more I'm able to circulate my attention, the more I notice, the more alternatives I have, the more vectors I notice that give me more possibility. So the underpinning on all of our handouts that we have in our trainings that have to do with, what are your transformational moves? We have a circle around the outside that has little arrows on it, and that means loop of awareness. So loop of awareness is the foundation for all of the transformational moves that we teach people in our trainings, and can be the foundation for your continued growth, expansion. I was realizing the other day that what is making me youth instead of aging is the circulation of attention. And that no matter what age you are, the flow of your attention can be open and expansive and opening new possibilities for you all the time. So that's the main thing that I was aware of. And I'm going to post, I have an article that I'm going to post for us that is about the circulation of attention. And it's about turning attention inward, and it'll give you some more information about what we've been playing with. And what do they call it? They call it metacognition, very Latinate, So metacognition means that you're able to give attention to your attention. So you're able to give attention to your thoughts. You're able to give attention to your feelings. And that weaving of your attention with what's going on, that's where the magic is. And so that's part of why I do this, is because I get more access to the magic of attention. And as you're sharing this with others, and you're doing it, especially, if you're doing any kind of work with people, you get to benefit. You don't give away all of your magic. You're creating more magic while you're circulating your attention. So the more you share, the more you get to enjoy, which is, I think, very cool. So let's show people the card for today. So intriguing. I had said last week that I was going to be focusing on, I think it was last week, that I was going to be focusing on agreements for a few weeks, and then I'm going to move to another one of the pillars. Because just to review, agreements, our entire society, civilization is based on agreements. So everything that we call the rules, the laws, those are basically codified agreements. And agreements are what allow us to be together, hopefully without having constant wars. So the understanding of the power of agreements in your life, I think, is incredibly useful. So I'd love for you to let your curious attention just wander around in the card, and then bringing your attention back to how are you receiving this? What's going on in your body, and letting yourself take the inner ride of your attention. So you're circulating your attention with the over there and back in here. And then let me read the sentence and the question. Oh, let's see. Okay. I make clear, direct requests that include a by when instead of airing generalized complaints. In close relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship, friends or colleagues, your ability to make clear requests and the absence of clear requests is one of the biggest sources of drama in relationship. Well, I thought you were going to do that. Well, no, you said yesterday that you were going to do that. So no, but I'm getting to it. I'm going to do it. I just haven't done it yet. So if you'd stop, picking on me, I would have gotten it done already. So I make clear, direct requests that include a by when instead of airing generalized complaints. So what you get with a generalized complaint is a burst of adrenaline. But when you start to make a clear request, my sense is what comes up for a lot of people is fear. If I make a direct request, you're not going to like it, or you're going to be mad at me, or I shouldn't make requests. I should just go ahead and do it myself. So the question is, how can I make a conscious agreement here? How can I make a conscious agreement here? So if we take a look at, I make clear, direct requests that include a by when. So let's come on back to the big group, because I have several things to say about this particular aspect of agreements. So when I just was talking about this with you, notice if you got any fear signals in your body. So that might be a holding of breath. It might feel a little tension. You might feel a little kind of, that would be a little bit of a flee, or you might have a sort of a collapsing of, that just never works for me, which would be faint. So what I invite you to do is just do, while we're talking about this, let yourself just do some light fear melters. So you can be doing your oozing. You can be doing your grounding and rooting. You can be doing wiggling. Wiggling is my go-to, because when I'm stuck, everything freezes. And my sense is that even if you specialize in one of the others, that almost everybody freezes. So, especially if the request is coming at you, almost the first thing that people do is this freeze. It might be a big one or a little one. So letting yourself wiggle, letting yourself do fear melters while I just read the question again. How can I make a conscious agreement here? So I had over the last couple of days, we've had a lot of entropy around here, things breaking, and particularly things breaking in the kitchen. And so I was making a clear request of Gay to not put things down the garbage disposal, because you think, what's garbage disposal for? Isn't it for putting things down the garbage disposal? But we live in an older house, and we have septic, and and if we put a lot of things down, then things back up, and we have to have everything rooted out, and it can make a big mess. But what came up was, he's not going to like it that I'm telling him what to do, and I'm bossing him around in the kitchen. And so I just want you to know that even very enlightened older people run into exactly the same thing that everybody else does. So I wiggled and I made a clear request, and it also is opened up. I could put a whole new thing in there, so that we have a little sieve, and then we just pull that out, and then we put that in the compost. And so what opened up for me was more creative ideas, rather than being caught in that fear loop, and he's not going to like it, and we also made some jokes about it. So that is how I know that we've moved through any kind of power struggle into, this is now funny. So with agreements, how you know that you've gotten to a place of flow is that it becomes funny. So rather than a power struggle, it's, there's something funny about it. So I'd like you to think of right now one thing in your life that needs a conscious agreement. It could be with a service person, it could be with a friend, it could be with your partner, like something that you've noticed and you've been complaining about it inside, but you have not yet dared to make a clear request about it. And the thing I'd like you to actually write down is by when, because that's what actually makes it real, where you say, and I'd like you to every time you use the sink, I'd like you to clean it out, or twice a day, I'd like you to, or so that you put a by when, or by the end of next week, or by midnight tonight. So that's the other place where fear tends to come up. I can come up anywhere, but that's a very common place for fear to come up, because if I make a request and and you don't like it, or you have a counter request, and then I'm afraid we're going to get into this big hassle of, remember 10 years ago where you had that thing when, and when we have, the keeping of the records and who did what and the scorekeeping. And so it will let you know how clean your agreements are, but also how no big deal your making a request can be. And so what I wish for all of us, that making a clear request with a by when becomes just no big deal. Like I've noticed that we haven't been handling how we do, who does the laundry. And I'd like to make some clear agreements about that now. Rather than people go, it's a place, I think, where people who care, and I'm putting you all in that category, will go into hero. Like, oh, I'll just do it. It's just easier for me to do it, rather than. So I'd like you to notice what you do instead of making a clear agreement. So going into hero, well, it's a perfect opportunity to go into the triangle. So that might be something that you play with, or that if you're working with a client, you play with, because instead of making a request, you go into drama. See, when you make a clear request, what drops out is drama. And so that adrenaline that most people use as a source of fuel drops out. So how else are you going to create fuel if you're not doing drama? So the reason I wanted to spend a lot of time on agreements is if we get those, if I get a really open, clear sense of agreements inside, it creates so much open space for creativity, for connection, and gives me a clear way to step out of drama. It's not as if I'm not going to ever have drama again, but that I have some very clear ways of going, oh, I realize we don't have an agreement here. No wonder we have all of this drama going on. So let's make a clear request about, and then whatever it is, who's going to go to the store. It's almost always about little stuff, what we would call little stuff. In my work with people in their relationships, in close relationships, almost always the relationship falters on what we might call the silly stuff, the toothpaste tube, the who left their clothes on the floor. So making clear requests about something in your life that you'd be willing to have more flow, you'd be willing to experience more flow. That's what I invite you into this week, and to be looking at where in my life are things, do I have drama? And ask, is there any agreement needing to be made here? So drama gets resolved most easily and productively by creating clear agreements. Now, just one more thing about agreements. The agreements that you have with yourself are more powerful than the agreements that you've made with others. And so one thing I'd also like you to do this week is to notice your own fuzzy agreements, your drama with you. Now, that almost always will have two places you can look, is food and time. So those are two places where we reliably create inner dramas. So how your agreements with your own time, like your own, when you're going to have creative time, when you're going to do relaxation time, and food. Of course, we could also add money, but let's just start with food, and time. Do you give your time away to others instead of having the time for your own creative work? So I invite you to take a look at, because we think of, well, I'm really good with my agreements. Well, what about your agreements with you? The agreements that you've made or not made. So that's where I would love for you to start with that today. Now, let's go see what. Oh, and also, if you have any questions or want to continue the discussion that we've been having this morning, bring it over to Mighty Networks. So if you want to say, hey, Katie, when you were saying blah, 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 I thought, wait a minute, that's not what, and we can just continue the discussion. I'm just pulling up something. I'm seeing my friend Julie Caldwell here on Instagram. So now I'm going to go to Creative, where is our Presence Connect Play. And which, by the way, Presence Connect Play and the website behind it is great introductory material for those of you who are coaches or you're wanting to integrate this material into the work that you do. Presence Connect Play is a great way to do that. So here we go for a new combination. Ooh, presence. This is as powerful as your work with agreements. Presence says, let your whole self turn toward what is happening. That's sort of the alpha and the omega of your successful interactions in the world. Turning toward. So take a moment to study your own not turning toward behavior. So it could be like side-eyeing it, like, oh yeah, I'll get to that later, or it could be jumping over it. It could be ignoring it. It could be projecting it onto somebody else. So at a body level, it's incredibly powerful to turn toward, to literally turn toward. So if you're turning toward your insides, for me, that is, I'm opening up, particularly I'm expanding my chest, I'm expanding my breath, and I turn my attention to circulate inward. So most often our not turning toward is that we turn aside or turn away from, and also we tend not to let our breath open up. So letting your posture and your breath open is a wonderful doorway to being here, but also to then be available for connection because you're turning toward what's happening. Gay and I, in the old days, we used to have this thing we would do that I'd be turning toward him as he was walking out the door. We had, I'd start talking to him, or, I'd be out in the kitchen and I'd hear this voice, and Gay would be talking to me because he thought I was still there. So the turning toward allows you to actually have something to recognize, oh, here we are. Oh, and you're in the kitchen now. So I have something I want to talk about. So I'll wait a minute until you arrive. So presence, we think of, oh yeah, presence, but showing up, nothing happens until you show up that you have any choice about. So presence also allows you much more choice. So turning toward, connect, listen appreciatively. These are all very core. I mean, so far, these things are like, if I were going to, working with a client saying, what would you start with that would be the most powerful? These are the most powerful. So listening appreciatively allows even when I try that on, I can feel my attention flowing. So I'm getting loop of awareness when I'm listening appreciatively. When I'm looking for things to appreciate, I'm feeling into, and so that moves my attention. And appreciatively, nobody shifts until they've been heard. And, so you can argue with, yes, you did, no, I didn't, all day long, and there will never be any connection. But when you listen appreciatively, like giving your sensitive awareness, what might pop up was something like, oh, that sounds like that was really hard. And it just pops up from your, it's not like you're echoing or parroting what the person has said. You're receiving the actual communication and registering it and you're registering it is then felt by the other person, and you're connected. So listening appreciatively is something that I give attention to every day. The what, and the is very helpful to move from who's wrong, and who's right in this, to how can I hear what's really going on for you? And you also don't have to do it perfectly. Your intention communicates. So if your intention is to be with, I forget who coined this, but withing, I love the withing. So like instead of being with, just withing. So listening appreciatively creates that withing, being with, of connection, which is incredibly nourishing. And then play is match and make bigger. This is cool. I haven't seen this one in a while. So play, this is especially useful for when we're giving attention to our own inner experience. So if I'm giving attention to, like, I'm just feeling the inside of my left groin, where my leg, meets my torso, and it's a kind of a right in there. So instead of going, what's going on here? If I let my attention go and I match the and then I make it a little bit bigger, then my quite easily the sort of the twist or the stuck place begins to open up. I've got breath in there, and I'm back into connection with myself. And that kind of play, what we're doing is tossing sensation and tossing our attention, and then following impulse. So matching and making it bigger is a wonderful way. So almost always, it's a wonderful way to create flow and creativity. So almost always in the play area, if I notice something, I'm a coach, and you're doing something, I'm going to ask you to do it, to stop doing that, or to do something different. Because almost all of the work that comes at you is calm down, calm down or stop it. And so what in our approach, it's meeting and doing more. So meeting, being with, and taking it further. So letting yourself actually go into the thing and make it bigger, then it becomes a source of creativity and aliveness rather than something that's wrong. Because something's always going to be going on, inside. So I do go on, but I wanted to, we got some really great prompts today, so I wanted to share that with you. So before I leave you, I'd like to just welcome everybody, people who haven't been here and people who have been here for years. Here I am, and here you are, here I am, and I'm so glad. So that's basically, that's sort of the heart of it, is here you are, I'm so glad. And to actually receive that, to give that to someone else, here you are, and I'm so glad. That creates more love and more connection on the planet. So here we are, and I'm so glad, and thank you so much for being here. So I'll see you on Mighty Networks, and those of you who come to share, and I'll see you next time. Mwah! Take care.